number 2 of probably my favorite bike of the year and maybe favorite bike of the last couple years. I think it's the most upgradable, maybe the most versatile, Surron Ultra Bee.
Surron Ultra Bee.
You know I love that bike.
It also has defined a whole new segment of electric dirt bike, and the aftermarket part is so cool too.
In the beginning, Surron Light Bee, I feel like took the cake for the amount of aftermarket parts that you could put on that bike to really just change what type of bike it is. Ultra Bee has at least caught up to that bike in just the amount of upgrades and changes that you can make to the Ultra Bee to kind of tailor it to what type of riding you're doing. It just, to me, seeing what we've done with the bike from either end of the spectrum, building a hard enduro bike all the way to a motocross bike that you could hit the triple at Thunder Valley on. It's done both of those things. And it's amazing that that bike, you can really tailor it to do both of those things and pretty much everything in between that.
Yeah, I mean, the build quality is excellent. The design and geometry is really pretty good especially for the price. And then obviously the ability to grow and change with that bike. Really unique. I love the fact that it has a full-size dirt bike seat as well. Obviously the plastics are good and you can change the plastics with it. The bigger chain and then the larger battery, good motor. And, with 2025, we did see quite a few upgrades from the original Ultra Bee. So that was cool to see. Slightly larger battery capacity, stronger motor, more fine-tuned front suspension. What else?
More power. I mean, that was like the big thing. And, I was lucky enough to get to test the original Ultra Bee when it came out, and it's enough power. But the first thing I said, I was like, I just wish it had just a little bit more. Like, it doesn't need a ton more. We don't need to get in a power war on the Ultra Bee. But yeah, that like 18 kilowatt range to me was going to be the sweet spot. That's what they did. And I really think that it is the sweet spot on that bike. You can get a lot of different riding done with that type of power on that bike. Sure, if you want to go crazy with the bike, more can be better, but I think out of the box, it's a really nice package. And for a lot of people, you can just keep it mostly stock. We tried to do some videos in 2025 where we show how you could upgrade this on a budget. Not everybody needs to do that. If you get on an Ultra Bee and it feels good to you and you're doing everything that you want to do on the bike in the stock form, great. But this bike just has so much upgrade potential that if you want to take it to that next level or ride it harder or put it in more of a specific environment, it just, the possibilities are kind of endless on the Surron Ultra Bee.
And it was cool to see them come out with an 18-inch rear wheel. So right away you had a little bit better stance on the bike. It is weird to have 1919 on that bike specifically for off-road riding. So a little bit better. And then you have the option, depending on your budget, to just put a 21 on the front if you're a normal dirt bike guy or you like having the rollover and the handling characteristics of a 21-inch front wheel and tire combo. It reduced that cost. And then eventually you probably are going to go with your own wheel set.
I'm surprised that Surron never came fully around on the 21-inch front thing. It was like we were all yelling about it for so long that this bike should have a 21 on it. To me, it's like a mandatory upgrade. Like, I just really don't want to ride the bike if it doesn't have a 21 on it for at least the riding that we're doing. I just think it makes the biggest difference in rollover on obstacles, but it also just corrects the geometry a little bit. And then we also have to give a shout out to our friends at Cirrus. I'm so happy that Cirrus came out with a product specifically for the Ultra Bee. I mean, that was really what they came out of the gate with. That's what Cirrus is known for. And they absolutely nailed it on that bike. To me, it changed the 2023 Ultra Bee that we initially had. I really enjoyed the bike in a specific environment, but putting the Cirrus F43 fork on and the R46 shock, that turned it into a bike that I was picking almost all the time to go ride. There's very few bikes, if we're going on like a group trail ride here in Colorado that I'm not going to pick my KTM 300, but once we modded the Ultra Bee with Cirrus suspension, 2118, EBMX X9000, and a few other things, that was kind of my go-to bike for a lot of the year. It's just, I mean, we can go back to what we just said about the Stark Varg and the KYB stuff. It's amazing what good suspension can do to transform a bike. And yeah, Ultra Bee, most expandable, tons of options. We've shown that it can just dominate hard enduro type riding, and with some of our more talented moto riders can send it huge on the Ultra Bee. So yeah, it's one of those bikes that just came out. I don't want to say that it's underappreciated, but I think a lot of times, and we've been guilty of this, where we take a modded Ultra Bee and we compare it to a Stark Varg. And you hear a lot of people get upset over that because you're taking a $6,000 bike that you put a lot of money into and comparing it to an off-the-shelf bike that similar costs, but a lot more performance. But I'm not full of it when I say that in certain environments, I am going to pick the Ultra Bee over the Stark Varg. And I know that I'm going to be faster on that bike. Now, what would we want to see change on the Ultra Bee? There's a few things that I've got in my back pocket that I'd like to see changed. I don't know what you think.
I think right away, I think they need to come out with a design or at least a 21-inch front wheel option. I mean, why not? It's not that expensive. There are so many people that are already doing that right out of the box.
It's easy to upgrade that in the aftermarket, and there's some companies out there that really offer like pretty competitive pricing for a wheel set when you compare it to, you know, full-size dirt bikes. So nice that they're, you know, just going back to the point that there's tons of options to tailor this bike to what you need. One thing that I would love to see, and I'd love to at least try it because I know that it exists. If they had a gear reduction or a gearbox instead of the belt, I would really love to see that. And even if it meant that it added 20 pounds to the bike, I think I'd still go for that.
You know, where you would add that weight is very centrally located on the bike, so not horrible. And also, like, the belt is more robust, and that was one of the things that they said they improved on the bike for 2025 was the carbon belt. But still, if you break a belt out in the middle of nowhere, it's a very heavy pushback.
You're right. I mean, the stock belt is super strong. We've had very few failures with it, but that's the other thing too. It's you open a can of worms when, you know, we've put bigger batteries on the bike. You put the EBMX X9000 on it, maybe change the motor. Now you can really ask a lot more power out of the powertrain, and that's asking a lot out of the belt. And so we've messed around, and last year we tried doing a chain drive on it. I immediately took it off. It felt like it had a lot of drag. It was noisy, and I would just rather roll the dice with a belt, even with all that extra power. But man, I'd love to just see a gearbox on that bike. I feel like it would be, I don't know, a good gearbox, right? Like if they could nail that and just take that little part of my brain that I'm worried about a belt and worried about landing on power, maybe being a little more apprehensive with it. I just think that bike would be such a winner. Can you guess the other part of the Ultra Bee that I wish would change? It was a big thing for us in 2025 that we couldn't quite pin down for a little while, and then we finally found out what it was.
Absolutely. And this is something we've seen with pretty much all of the Chinese-made electric dirt bikes. And when we were going around the show this year as well, I was looking, and right away I'll rock up to the rear swing arm and stick my hand on the inside and go, it's not a box swing arm. Like, that doesn't seem like such a big deal, but it really is. You never know what you're missing until it's gone.
Right.
And for the swing arm to not be boxed, which is less reinforcement, obviously when these bikes, you're modding them or even just hitting big jumps, and if you're landing on throttle or other things like that, we developed a crack in the rear swing arm that allowed the swing arm to bend, which happens on other electric dirt bikes too. And once that swing arm is flexing and bending, you're going to throw the chain, and that's not good.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not just isolated to the Ultra Bee. So you need to point that out. Like a lot of these Chinese made bikes have the same issue, and it's an area where they're definitely trying to save weight, but just like the gearbox idea, I would rather have the extra weight and have the strength. The swing arm, it took us a while to figure it out, but we just had that hairline crack around it. And you would, landing off of a jump or accelerating out of a corner, it would just be enough load on that swing arm where the whole thing would flex and we just throw the chain. And we were bending sprockets, switching from aluminum to steel sprockets, just could not figure out what was going on for a little bit until we found that crack in the swing arm. And yeah, it makes a ton of sense. But I think those are my two big wish list items for the Ultra Bee. If we could do gearbox or gear reduction motor and a boxed or just stronger swing arm that could handle that power or just the load of riding the bike harder, those are like probably my two biggest wish list items for that bike.
And also, I think we need to mention that it is the only bike in its size. Well, it is a bike that is large enough to race with other dirt bikes and you can swap the battery. So, I mean, when you did, what was the race that you did originally?
Yes, the San Isabel Enduro.
Yeah, so when you did the San Isabel Enduro, you switched the battery 3 times, I believe?
I brought 3 batteries, but I actually did... I might have done 4 swaps, and I did a lot of them prematurely just because there was an opportunity to swap. And so it's like, let's just take every opportunity to put a 100% charged battery back in the bike. But it wouldn't have been possible on the Varg.
Yeah.
So it's just not a thing that would have happened because, you just need extra batteries. And it was a 65-ish mile enduro in the mountains in Colorado, pretty desolate. Really hard to get to some spots, and there was a big question mark if that was actually going to work on that bike. But we had a couple extra batteries, and it worked great. I mean, it was super fun to be able to finish that race on that bike, and yeah, we couldn't have done that on a bike that didn't have the option to switch batteries.
So yeah, there was a larger battery on the 2025 model.
Yep.
What type of range did you see in comparison to the previous model?
Well, it's funny. I didn't really notice a huge increase in range. There was an increase, but it was minimal. And I think the reason why is because the 2025 just has more power. So you just you use more energy, right? You're like, hey, this bike's faster. I'm going to just grab the throttle harder out of corners and things like that, and maybe ride it a little less efficient. I don't know. I think that the battery decision on that bike was more so to complement the power and maybe less range, which it did.
Great point.
Yeah, it just didn't have as big of an impact as I was thinking it might. But we have a couple of Ultra Bees. One of our Ultra Bees right now has the large 80 volt eWatt battery. That's significantly bigger, and that battery gets significant more range too. We like the bike that we have built right now, everything's modded on it, even down to the motor. And that's just going to require more energy to move that big motor. But if you really want to get more range on the Ultra Bee, I think you just need to go for a bigger aftermarket battery.
So we've talked about all these aftermarket parts that you can put on the bike. Now, the bike originally comes in at like 189.
Exactly. Yeah,
so
right around there.
190-ish pounds. And then your race bike, I remember we weighed it. Was that at 220, 210?
You're asking me to remember more numbers again, Brian, but I want to say...
substantial to me, so I remember something enough to ask.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was in the 2 teens. I know that. I want to say it was like, because we had 2 builds. I think one of them was like 213, maybe the other was 218. They were right around that 210 to 220 mark, which is a significant amount more weight. But I don't know, does the eMoto market maybe get a little too concerned with weight? Kind of like cross-country mountain bikers? In my opinion, yes. When you're scrutinizing bikes of that size, weight isn't always a bad thing. And I think that's like one thing that people need to understand. Like when you ride lighter weight bikes, like the Light Bee, I'll just put that one because we're comparing small bikes to the Ultra Bee. Like a Light Bee, yeah, it's super light. It's way lighter than an Ultra Bee. It doesn't ride better off road. You deflect and you bounce around because you're just getting kicked around all the time. But same on the Ultra Bee. Like it's a super light bike, and that's what makes it feel fun and nimble. But adding more weight to the Ultra Bee, I don't think ruins the ride quality. I think in a lot of ways, it actually makes it ride better. It just makes it feel more planted, more stable. You can hit some of these obstacles and it won't deflect as much. So we haven't gone too much over 215 pounds, but I still feel like the bike's right in the sweet spot at that 215 pound mark. So yeah, Surron Ultra Bee, it's not a new bike, but 2025 brought a new addition. And yeah, we still love that bike. Most adaptable, most upgradable.
And I think we're going to see a lot of new bikes in that segment soon.
I think 2026 is going to be the year of the midsize category. If you made it this far and you want more, you can find the full episode of the eMoto Show by clicking the links below, or just search the eMoto Show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if this was useful, please like and subscribe.